What's happening, my friends? Welcome to another episode of the John Lovell Show. Today we're talking about fake alphas. They're preening peacocks. They kind of look like alphas in that they talk the talk, but they never walk the walk. And eventually, time will find them out. They usually destroy everything. An alpha should be a good, confident leader, and you should be safe following the leadership of an alpha, generally speaking. So it's not a bad thing, but a fake alpha destroys everything, and they are everywhere. This video is sponsored by Aura. Are you sick and tired of people spamming you and calling you and emailing you? You really just can't trust big companies to keep your information safe. On that note, I was just talking to my buddy Win here. Ticketmaster had a major data breach. Because I have Aura, I don't worry about data breaches and a whole host of other online security issues. Check out aura.com/WPS and you get a 2-week free trial. That's aura.com/WPS for a free trial. I'm married. It's a girl. She digs me. r.com/WPS. So I've been watching one of these other survival shows. In some of these survival shows, and over the last couple of years, I've really gotten into them, but somebody has dropped off on some island or way up in the Arctic, and they've just got to, with their wits, resolve, ingenuity, and long suffering, be able to survive against the elements. A lot of these guys are survival experts, and so they have varying degrees of success. Usually it's the starving games, but man against nature. I'm into the shows. Well, right now I'm into one where it's not survival experts. It's just like everyday tradesmen and business people, lawyers, doctors, and they're dropped in these environments in a group. And so this group, varying demographics, different ages, male and female, they may be rich, they may be poor, but better or worse, they're dropped off in one big group and they just, hey, let's see how we survive. Now, in these, and this is where we really lean into the episode, and it was the impetus, the really starter that got me on this whole diatribe, is there'll always be, right off the get-go, in the very first hour they're dropped off on the island, some self-aggrandizing alpha. It may be a male, it may be a female, but regardless, they really will even look into the camera oftentimes and say, I'm an alpha male. And they're loud, they're bossy, a lot of times they're rude, but they're going to lead. They're not really taking advice from other people, and they're just kind of steamrolling. They're really bullying people along. And anyway, as they step forward of like, oh, this group needs leadership, and I'm the one to do it. And they immediately seize on that opportunity. They haven't built any relational rapport. They're not finding out about who other people. It's just, I'm here, you're welcome, and I'm here to lead. Those folks are almost never lasting more than a few days as leaders. And it's interesting that as the weeks drag on, these people become a boat anchor. They're nonconformists, they're grumpy, they're bitter, they have ideas, and they are sure that they are right. They're not taking group consensus in any form. But oftentimes, what I find is this alpha who has some kind of alpha-ish qualities. So you could look at them and be like, all right, that makes sense that they'd be the leader. They're not staying the leader. And so it led me on this question of like, how do you spot the fake alpha? Because clearly in these extremely difficult circumstances, the one that stepped forth, I'm the alpha and wants to lead, sometimes they stay in as leader and they actually perform well, but usually they don't. How do you spot a fake alpha? How do you spot somebody who wants to grab that holy grail of leadership, to grab that mantle and present themselves as a leader and have everyone fall in line, but really, they're not effective leaders. They're not real alphas. And time proves it true over and over again. What is it? How do you spot a fake alpha? I have a few different things to go through. I have 5 major ways that you can spot a fake alpha. As we're going through these guys, I really encourage you to jump into the comments. Let's have a good conversation on this. There is likely stuff that I missed. If you take any of my points and you don't agree with them, well, just tell me why. Have a good conversation. This isn't enshrined in stone out there. And even the term alpha or beta or sigma or omega or delta, all of it's kind of pseudoscientific. A lot of the categories, they're not etched in scientific journals, peer-reviewed, and in our textbooks per se. But I think the actual categories, the realities of the interpersonal sociological nature of things is represented. And so whether those titles per se are good or not, I think the underlying reality that they represent is actually faithful. Before I get to those 5 things, though, I want to talk categorically about the alpha category. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast not too long ago, and there's this guy named Adam. He did this TV show before Adam Ruins Everything. Did you ever see that show?
Never saw that show. Nope,
okay, basically he gets on and he takes all these traditions or thoughts that our society has at large and basically debunks them. And so the show title, Adam Ruins Everything, is really apropos in that he's going through and deconstructing everything. And sometimes it's everything that you hold dear, and he has a great time doing it. And he's talking to Joe Rogan about the fallacy that alpha as a category exists at all.
The alpha male doesn't exist in humans. Like if you talk to any anthropologist, any biologist, any sociologist, right, and be like, are humans organized in a social relationship where there's alphas and betas? They'll be like, no, what are you talking about? This is an unscientific idea.
That's just
right?
not true.
And we just did something laying that out in the context of like people who are, oh, my type is I like alphas, right? Well, there's no such thing actually, you know. Humans are you're dominant in some situations, not in others, right? It's an overly simplistic way of looking at human relationships.
It's true that women are hardwired to be attracted to confident, athletic men.
I don't know if I agree with that.
So first off, I'd love to point out that Rogan seems like a confident, extremely smart. He's very strong. He's very successful. As you look at Rogan looks like an alpha. He's not preening and demanding this. He's not bullying. He's actually incredibly self-aware and introspective. And I would look at somebody like Rogan and be like, that guy, that's an alpha. And then you can look at Adam here and be like, does Adam strike you as an alpha? Dude, he's got beta energy all over him. Beta energy all over him. However, I think he is intellectual in his own right. I'd classify him as like king of betas, in that he finds a coalition of trolls, betas, and he becomes their de facto leader in that he is the head intellectual griper. He's a deconstructionist where an alpha builds stuff and leads movements. Betas don't build anything. Betas follow, and if they're not following well on a course of a movement, they immediately start bickering and they'll start destroying. And that's what Adam does, is he builds nothing, he deconstructs everything, and that's a real big problem. King of betas, I think it exists in social media spaces. It can exist on digital platforms where they lead a coalition of bitter and negative people who want to deconstruct and complain about stuff without building anything. In real life, I don't think Adam's leading anything. I think you can build a coalition of dispossessed people online and stuff like that. But either way, like there's also this guy, he's a lefty, very popular. He goes by the handle Destiny. Do you know this guy?
Oh yeah, gamer.
He's a gamer.
Streamer.
I didn't even know that. He also strikes me as a kind of king of the betas. Not building anything. He's just a pro troll, a professional troll, disenfranchised with everything, critiquing everything, building nothing, leading nothing. And so here, Rogan has a good response to Adam. Let's go ahead and play that.
Clearly, men who are more aggressive and athletic and dominant and more confident, and then men who are introverted and shy and more nervous and anxious. And there's a scale
in some situations, you know,
social situations.
Yeah,
and that's what we're talking about, right?
In social, yeah, but your social situation could change based on what situation you're in. You know what I mean?
Could, but like an athletic, confident male is always going to be an athletic, confident male, and an introverted, anxious male who has problems with social anxiety is going to be the same. That's who that person is.
I don't think so necessarily.
So I like how just cool, calm, collected Rogan is. And I'm like, okay, apparently Adam here, and Rogan goes on to actually say this point of like, maybe you're just tripping up on the word alpha. Maybe it looks too much like a wolf pack to you. But Rogan is pointing out of like, hey, there's just an underlying reality of charismatic leadership, of strength, of ambition, all that kind of stuff. And we classify it with our own name of alpha, right? In a wolf pack, there is a leader of the wolf pack. You know, in a pride of lions, there's a lead lion. Now, you look at also this in people, because I think there's a complete parallel as well, and it's just basic leadership. You look at a an Indian tribe, for example, the chief will be an older man. He's not the greatest warrior. He's not the strongest person, but he's the one who wields ultimate power over the tribe. What he says goes. Now, his war captain is also going to be an alpha, and he's an alpha because he's the strongest, the fastest, the most daring risk taker of them all. And so both are alphas, but the chief alpha, the chief, is there because of his leadership capabilities, because of his wisdom, because of his old age that gives him good knowledge on how to actually keep the entire tribe in survival. And so you have different kind of ways that alphas lead, but still the underlying characteristics there show that certain types of personalities rise to the top and present good and safe leadership for the rest. Now, you can also have malfunctioning alphas, which end up coming into tyrants, but I would say that that's not really a classical alpha in the sense that they're leading in humility or something else like that. This is somebody who is more of a fake alpha who has seized power and control and wields it in a tyrannical way, and they won't last in a long time as a leader.
Yeah, Adam offers this. His take is that, well, depending on the social situation, but to me that rung hollow because the awkward gamer doesn't all of a sudden channel like inner greatness in when thrust onto the basketball court.
Good point. I agree. I wanted to be able to play this clip because there's some people out there that are going to categorically dismiss the idea of alpha. Well, great, as Rogan ends up pointing out, well, remove the word alpha and just replace it with leader or whatever makes you happy. But there does exist certain imbued leadership qualities for certain individuals that make them more suited for leadership. And I'm going to go over some of those of what does a real alpha look like and what does the fake alpha look like. The fake alpha never has humility. One of the key essential ingredients of a leader is humility. If it's a leader that doesn't have humility, they're going to immediately upset people. They don't have empathy. They're not able to really leverage the skills, the expertise, the knowledge, and the good ideas of everyone else because somebody who isn't humble, they don't have the confidence to be able to allow people to have a voice. They feel like they have to come up with all the ideas and bring them across the finish line. This leads people to be self-aggrandizing in that because they don't have real confidence, they feel like they need to tell everyone how great they are all the time. They are preening peacocks in the truest sense. Another thing is without humility, they don't really care about the group members. They're really there because they feel like they're God's gift to the group, and everyone should be extremely happy that I am here to rescue you all. Whereas a real humble leader feels like they want to take care of the group. The eyes aren't on themselves. The eyes are on everyone else. And so a real alpha is never really standing up and being like, bow to the alpha. I'm the alpha. No, one of the big marks that somebody is not an alpha is that they're claiming to be the alpha. A real alpha, it doesn't feel the need to tell people that they're an alpha. They're not trying to convince anyone. It's just kind of confident in their enough of their own skin that they're able to, exude confidence. And then their minds are really on, how do I take care of those people who are following us? I noticed this in the military. Insecure leaders never did well, and it was really always about themselves. Their egos were first and foremost. They're extremely insecure, very easy to upset, very easy to offend. They were micromanagers and they were extremely toxic leaders. Whereas the humble, they were always trying to take care of the boys. In the military, if you take care of the boys will take care of you as well. And that's how good leadership and good teams work. A good leader must have humility, and somebody who doesn't have humility is going to wreck everything. So when you're mounting a team, beware the person that demands leadership and must have leadership. That person, though they're loud, boisterous, and you would think that that's the one, obviously. No, they're loudmouths. They're not leaders. And that's completely different. If someone really needs that leadership, they must be the leader. They put themselves forward as the leader. They put everyone else down as leader. They're only playing ball if they can lead. Beware that person. No way should you let that person lead. All right, let's move on to point number 2. Fake alphas aren't strong. Now, this point can be a little bit misleading because you could have a fake alpha that's just jacked to the nines. They can deadlift a Buick. And I'm not talking about physical strength, though I think a real alpha does care about the appearance of things somewhat. They usually have the self-mastery. They have the self-discipline to be able to work out regularly. And typically an alpha, a real alpha, is not a slobby person. They're a disciplined person, and they usually are in pretty darn good shape. However, you can also have fake alphas in incredible shape. A fake alpha, though, they take strength and really relegate it only to the appearances of things. So they may be physically strong. Then they select a bunch of traditional alpha kind of hobbies. They do masculine kind of stuff. They may even dress very masculine. They get the beard and whatever else they want. And then they may drive a flashy car. Now, it's not that anybody that has those things is a fake alpha. I think there is a Venn diagram. There's an overlap there. Real alphas and fake alphas maybe both prize certain things, but the fake alpha really puts all strength into the appearances of things. That's where they are. They're the preening peacock. Where a real alpha is far, far more interested in the software of a thing than the hardware. A real leader, a real alpha male cares far more about self-discipline. They care about positive thinking, to take away negative stuff that would be able to tear them down, negative emotion as well, and be able to extricate that, and instead dwell on positive things, building positive habits over time. A real alpha cares about values. They care deeply about character. A real alpha is strong, not just physically, but emotionally as well. They're not flying off the handle. They can handle their emotions. They don't get angry at the drop of a hat. If you see somebody who gets angry really, really easy, that's a fake alpha. They don't have the self-mastery to even handle their own emotions. Instead, these boys trapped in bodybuilder bodies get angry at the drop of a hat. They don't have control over their own emotions. That's like a toddler trait. You're supposed to grow out of that action. But instead, these fake alphas don't have the self-discipline or self-mastery to be able to control something. How emotionally weak is that person? And I would say very. They may be strong physically, but they're not strong emotionally. They're not strong mentally. They're not strong morally. Whereas a real leader has to have good character. They have to have good habits. They have to have good self-mastery. They have to have good self-discipline. Otherwise, their leadership is going to fall by the wayside. A real good leader is not only humble, but they have good habits. They have good self-discipline. They're strong emotionally, physically, spiritually, morally. All across the board is strength. But if you find somebody who really takes physical strength, maxes that one out at the expense of everything else, they're a fake alpha. Beware.
And some of these men that devote everything to working out, they have the self-control to not eat the cookie. They need to just extend the self-control to the other spheres of life as well.
I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. I think fake alphas have mastery in certain areas, and typically it's working out and career. Hustle culture really centers on these two at the expense of everything else. And I've said this other places a whole bunch of different times. Hustle culture will give you a really good 2-year trajectory and a really terrible 10. You're going to lose your family. You stole all your time from the most important things of life, and that's relationship and joining and building good movements. And you took away from all the different areas of life that matters most. And instead you spent it on yourself, on dedicating huge amounts of time and resources to your diet and spending hours in the gym and working huge hours at your career so you could buy some flashy car.
Yeah, meanwhile, your wife atrophies.
Yes.
Your body is bulked, but your relationships atrophy.
Third way to spot a fake alpha. Fake alphas don't take responsibility. They want to be in charge. They want to make good decisions. However, when things go sideways, they're not going to say, I'm sorry. Instead, they'll immediately start the blame game. And in that blame game, what they want to do is convince everyone that their decisions, their leadership, their skills, everything that they did was perfect, and it was the group members that were at fault. Even if that were true, a real alpha will take responsibility for things that went wrong, bring in the group and be like, all right, hey, guess what? That sucked. That didn't go very well at all. What did we do wrong here? Very good. Now, I want to say as the leader, I've taken responsibility for this, but I want to change it. I want to be able to do better here in the future. And so here's some things that I'm going to change immediately, and I think that's going to lead the group better. What can we do as a group? And so a confident alpha male is going to be able to take responsibility to be able to immediately apologize for anything that they may have had, involved in this thing, and they'll be able to course correct. They're not blaming everyone else. They're taking responsibility. They're not shirking it and putting on everyone else. A sure sign of a fake alpha is they're always blaming, they're never apologizing, and they're never taking responsibility.
They'll hit eject before they hit accountability.
All right, point 4, moving right along. A real alpha is a natural leader, and they have a following. Wherever they are right now in life, you'll notice people are following them. They're not demanding it. They're not being bossy. They're just going to naturally fall into a leadership role, especially when times get scary or times get difficult. People in desiring security will naturally come under the leadership of an alpha. Maybe when things are going well, they'll have dissensions and they'll have difficulties and they won't really want to follow. But especially when you squeeze people, they'll want good leadership and they will follow naturally in the path of a leader. So if someone isn't actually leading people in real life, they're not a real alpha. So if you're wondering, hey, I'm a real alpha, look behind you. And if no one's following you, you're probably not. The 5th and final point, guys, is a fake alpha is not a risk taker. They want to be in charge, but they also want to play it safe. This way that they'll exert their will, then they'll try to get everyone to admit that this is a good idea. So now it's group consensus. So if it doesn't go right, you can just blame, well, this is what everyone voted for. And as the leader, I was just doing what y'all wanted all along. Whereas a real leader is okay to take a certain amount of risk. They're confident enough to be able to break brush and plot a new course into the unknown. And it can be extremely scary. Real leaders, real alphas are natural risk takers. A fake alpha, though, they may talk the talk, but they don't actually walk the walk. They'll be loud. They'll talk about risk taking, but when it comes down to it, they won't do it. Fake alphas are not risk takers. And that's unfortunate because a leader has to be able to take risks. You have to be able to lead a group into the unknown. That's what leadership is. Right? It's not maintaining status quo. Leadership is taking some people from where they're at and taking them to where they want to go, or they should go, where they need to go. But it's basically plotting a course and bringing people from where they're at to where they need to go. Somebody who's adverse to risk keeps everyone at the same place. They'll talk about stuff, but they want to stay in the same place where it's nice and safe. So there you have it, guys. There's my 5 ways to spot a fake alpha. Jump in the comments. Tell me, did I miss anything? Or of these 5 points, do you disagree with something? Is there some big exception that I completely missed? And so love to be able to glean from your collective advice down in the comments and let us know. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We got a lot more in this show that you are missing. Our Q and Ambush section, which is questions from you guys, stuff that you want to hear.
John wonders what to do when you don't want to leave.
That's part of this show. And also our Hot Topic section. You're not going to want to miss it.
And pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
To get the rest of the show, you're going to have to support us. We really appreciate it if you would put skin in the game and help us with this movement. You guys get to choose the winners out there. Woke entertainment companies or guys like us, little guys, we need your support. So if you would go over to watchwpsn.com, that's watchwpsn.com, sign up. You'll get the rest of this show, The John Lovell Show, all of our other shows, and a whole bunch of training classes from me and from other trainers in the industry that we deem amazing and spectacular. It's a fantastic value. Sign up for a year. We'd appreciate it, and we will see you next time, guys.